YouTube Nation, I'm Sam here again with A Bear and a Bee Books, and today I'm doing my favorite YA reads of 2017. I have 8 altogether and 3 honorable mentions. The first book I'd like to talk about today is called Stung by Bethany Wiggins. This is a retelling. I've heard it listed as both a Rapunzel and a Beauty and the Beast retelling. The plot is really good, and my favorite part of this book was the pacing. I'm also a big fan of detailed settings, and there's one point in this one where they end up in like some sewers and some tunnels and things, and I felt that that was really well done. I'm a big Disney fan, so anytime I see a fairy tale retelling, I'll usually snap it up and check it out. So I really enjoyed this author's writing style, and I do eventually plan on picking up the second title to this. I believe this is a duology, and the second one is called Cured. Kind of dystopian vibes in it, so if that's not something you're interested in, I might stay away from this one. If you're good with that and you like fairy tale retellings and you like a quick plot with a detailed setting, I'd say definitely give this one a go. The next honorable mention I wanted to talk about was this book here. This is called The Bird and the Sword, and this is by Amy Harmon. This was my first Amy Harmon book. I read another one of her books, like the first couple of chapters, and I really liked the writing style, so I thought I would pick one up. I decided to start with her fantasy selection since I love fantasy. This is listed as both YA and new adult, though I don't find that the content is too racy. I think that it's in line with most of the other YA books I read. The writing was really different. A lot of YA fantasies I read, I felt like her style was a little unique. I also found the characters and the storyline to be completely compelling. I would have liked the setting to be a little further developed, but other than that, I really enjoyed it overall. There's also a map included in the book, and I really like that. I love fantasy books that come with maps. I find that it helps you to kind of get into the world better. And also there's a group of council members in this book, and they represent all the different territories in this particular fantasy world, and I really liked how it brought together the whole world by getting to know the differences between the council members. It kind of gave you a sampling of what the whole world was like versus just the particular territory that most of the story was set in. The final honorable mention I wanted to talk about today, BlackSouls by Nicole Castroman, and this is book 2. This is her series that's a Blackbeard retelling. This book I actually put in my review on Goodreads that it's one of those books where you get to 100 pages and you're like, wow, I'm already to 100 pages. Her writing for me just flows. In this book in particular, she deals with a lot of important issues and brings up a lot of different controversies that affected people back during this time and throughout our history as a human race. It had more pirating, which I love. It had a lot of really great characters. I love when side characters are developed, and she does that really well. Also, the setting was great. Overall, I really enjoyed this, and I plan on picking up the final installment. So I don't see anything yet for a third book listed on Goodreads, but I'm hopeful because I feel like the story definitely has more developing to do, and it definitely has a place that it was leading to. Next, I'd like to talk about my 5 top YA books of 2017. The first one I'd like to talk about is actually a book that has grown on me. It's one of those books where I read it and I was like, oh, that was really good. I enjoyed that. And then I keep thinking back about it. It stayed with me. It had a really unique premise. The setting was really interesting. So that book is... it's called Little Blog on the Prairie, and that's by Cathleen Davitt Bell. This little book is actually really cute. So this family, they go to like, it's kind of like this prairie land where families go to pretend like they're living back in the time of Little House on the Prairie. They have to like make their own food, and they have to do chores of the time, and they have to dress like that, and they're not allowed to have any cell phones or any modern technologies, but of course the kids find a way, and it's just kind of about how that affects the experience. It was just really unique, and I really enjoyed it. The next book I'd like to talk about is this one. It's called Strange Sweet Song by Addie Rule. This one was kind of a gothic read. It talks about music, and it's set at like a music boarding school. It talks a lot about loss and grief, but it also deals with acceptance and love. And I did get a little teary-eyed at the last third of this book. If you like fantastical elements and you're at all interested in music or things like the Phantom of the Opera, stuff like that, I think that you would really appreciate this book, and I found it to be really beautiful. The next book I'd like to talk about is The Accident Season, and this was one of the books I read for the Halloween time. It does have a really good setting at one point in the book that would make it great to read around the around the Halloween season. This book does have some trigger warnings, so I would definitely check out Goodreads for those. It really talks about those that have broken hearts and painful memories, people that you might not know that have lived through really tragic times, and just how they go along dealing with their everyday life. In the end, it was definitely filled with acceptance, and I thought that that was really beautiful. And overall, this one got me a little teary-eyed as well. The next book on this list is The Valiant by Lesley Livingston. And I'm typically drawn to ancient history. I find it really fascinating. I took an entire course in college about the study of mythology, and so that's why this book really called to me. It deals with some really heavy issues. It was really hard in the beginning of the book, seeing people's freedom taken from them. But this book is about a female gladiator, and they actually recently have discovered some historical evidence that does lend credit to that. So I found this really interesting and a great time to read this based on the new evidence that was recently found. Overall, it was written well, it was fast-paced, but you did get to know the characters. I found that the story didn't really have any plot holes. It was well developed, and I cannot wait for the second installment. Finally, my favorite YA read of the year is My Lady Jane, and this is by Cynthia Hand, Brodi Ashton, and Jodi Meadows. Now, out of those authors, I've read Jodi Meadows before, and I absolutely love her writing style, so I thought that this would be a good one for me to try. I ended up buddy reading this for the November readathon with Frozen Book Paradise, and I'm so glad she asked me to buddy read this because it was on my shelf, but it's kind of a chunkier book, and I'd been meaning to get to it, and I just kind of put it off, but I'm so glad I read it. I love historical fiction. I love retellings. I love YA. And when you're reading this book, it's really hard to tell that 3 people wrote it. How they interweaved their voices together and made this sound like one complete work is just astounding to me, and I think it's absolutely amazing. As someone who has dabbled in writing, it kind of blows my mind that they were able to make this sound so seamless. The characters were really great, and I can't wait for the next book they put out together. I will definitely be checking that out. My top YA read of the year is My Lady Jane. Well, that's all the books I have for you here today. I'm really excited for the upcoming year, and I hope that everyone had a wonderful holiday season with their families. I have so many books yet that I really want to share with you. My collection's a little out of control. It's definitely my passion. I don't typically buy a lot of clothes or anything like that, so books are what I spend my extra money on, and they're something that makes me really happy. So I hope that you'll stick around and come back and see me for more videos. I have quite a few planned already for this year. I do have my first shelf haul coming up here soon. If you've read any of these books, or if you have any recommendations for me based on the books that I talked about, I'd love to hear. I'd love to talk to people in the comments. I used to be part of a an actual like real life in-person book club, and I really miss that. So I love to chat and just to talk about books. Thanks again for being here with me today. Please go ahead and subscribe below, and I look forward to seeing you next time. You can always follow me on Twitter and friend me on Goodreads. Farewell for now. Bye-bye.